Epilogue. Ichtak had insisted he stay at rest through the first departures, but Setiawan had refused. To the northwest, the border with the Duumvirit's ancient allies in Gunug was even now being broken wide by the border garrisons and Ektal legions of Teotihuacan province, and the vulnerable Eztlan Peninsula was being shored up with militia and troops raised from amongst the locals. Upon the waves, the fleet was preparing to test its newest metal against legendary Lautan. The repulsed Ida were watched by cautious eyes from Kushkotlan, not a part of any coalition, but surely still a force of which to be wary. Even the border with Sholoshaidi's vassal Kandar in the east, held to be an even more wild, backward, and fractious land than the Ida lands, was being closely minded as its clans were called to arms. The standing Ektal legions of Tepeklan province had been dispatched during that first night for the borders, mostly for Gunug, but a few for Eztlan province, where the Lautani might attempt to land. From his perch atop Shahuit Zul, watching the dawn fanfare as the legions of the regular army called to war were marshaled upon the cliffs above the city in the swelling morning light, it was easy for Setiawan to forget all of this. The globe stood on the brink of a chaotic tempest the likes of which it had never known, both in the old world and the new. Upon the vacant top of Shahuit Zul, it was easy to dwell in the moment rather than the tomorrow he knew would come. The eternal flames' crackling growl and the soft winds buffeting of the heights numbing him to the world over the highland horizons. He had never seen Tepeklan from the city proper before, always being stationed in the palace below ground or upon the cliffs at the outskirts with the court physicians. It was a profoundly religious experience to see the vista from which everything had begun so many thousands of years past. When Setiawan had been called from tiny Adipelabuhan by Tepeklan's court physician for an apprenticeship, his clan had been ecstatic. Harakwe had surely smiled upon them, they would say, for new residents of his empire to be shown such welcome. Setiawan himself, though, had not been so sure. Tepeklan's legendary bustle, and the power games he would be witness to, had not sounded his speed. The youth had much preferred the sound of crashing waves and long evening walks to the frenetic rush of the medical programs his parents had laid out before him. Loyalty to his Marga had carried him through, though, aided by Setiawan's capacity for quick learning. All that had changed when Ichtak VI had been carried into the field hospital outside Eztlan. Setiawan had known even as he tended the unconscious prince for the first time that he was somehow special to him. He had never acknowledged his desires to anyone but himself, but when Ichtak's eye opened and the monarch-to-be had seen Setiawan for the first time, the Lautani apprentice had been sure there was something between them. It had never had to be spoken aloud, living just beneath the shared laughter, but it had always been there. The only thing that troubled Setiawan about Ichtak was the tenebrous doubt and anger that simmered within him, never far from the surface. Not once had that temper been directed at Setiawan, but he had always known it to be there. When the prince had awakened beside him during the night, thrashing in the final throes of some unspoken nightmare, he had seen traces of it bubbling beneath the uncertainty in his wide, frantic eye. He had known the warrior who slew Ida in the field must be far different than the tender counterpart who wrote him tender letters, but he had not laid eyes on it until the headless Shakoat had been wheeled into the palace wards the night of Ichtak's ascension. Excruciating as the thrumming in his skull with every heartbeat and the burning scars beneath his loose shirt could be, as humiliating as those days in the Inquisition's bladed care had been, Setiawan had never wished death upon his captors. He knew on some level that Ichtak was fresh off the culmination of a lifetime's familial animosity, played out to its end in the tunnels beneath the palace, that it had been no normal day. Whatever had happened down there would be between him, Harakwe, and the priesthood for all his life. Still, that did nothing to alter the fact that he looked at Ichtak differently now. The Tlatoani of Sholoshahidi sat beside him, not the prince, and he was unsure how much of the Ichtak he knew still lived within. "I won't make you stay," Ichtak said from beside him. "I just worry."
"I'm 6 months from being acknowledged by the court," Setiawan said. "My place is at the front with the wounded, with you."
"I could use someone I trust in the palace," Ichtak told him. "Someone I would pledge my life to. My orders from the lines will have to reach ears I know will do the right thing with them in Tepeklan."
"You've said it yourself. I can't be your consort."
"The people don't have to know who relays my orders to the Senate of War," said Ichtak. "The Senate are all hand-chosen elder veterans of the Tepeklan Ektal. My will is theirs. They'll follow an order if it is given." The speedy reformation of the former Industrial Council into a home front advisory senate of retired officers had been less contentious than its initial formation, especially given the declaration of war. Many executions and imprisonments had quelled seizures of manufactories across the nation and her colonies, and the Coataquitli were in open celebration. The Sholoshahitian Empire had long been ruled by the Ektal-advised Tlatoani, and this seemed, if anything, a return to form.
"I know," Setiawan sighed, "but it is not my place. Harakwe sends you to the front, to bleed with the legions. It's only right that I be there to halt the bleeding."
He reached over, taking Ichtak's hand. Uncertain of the future as he might be, he was glad Ichtak could now dismiss the palace staff with a wave of the hand.
"Some Ektal official, maybe High Marshal Tlalak, can be your voice in Tepeklan," Setiawan protested. "I'll be with you while this war to end all wars plays out."
"I love you," Seti. It was the first time Ichtak had spoken the words, set them free from the scrawled page of a letter. But Sholoshahidi must always come first. He gripped Setiawan's hand a bit tighter. "I'll never order you to do anything," Ichtak assured him. "You're free to follow me, if that's your wish. This won't be easy, though. It won't be a month in the saddle before we're back in triumph. This war will redraw the map. It will be long. I can't say if we'll see any more of each other when we're 5 miles apart at the front than we would if you were thousands of miles off in the palace."
"We'd better dig in our heels, then."
Their last hour of peace before their race north to the border with Gunug was quiet, a final reprieve from the monumental responsibilities yet to come. Neither speculated about the battles beyond the horizon, or the questions of right and wrong still to be puzzled out from the Tlatoani's dais. Doubt was still there, beneath the skin. But today was not for doubt. Their concern was only for the brightening sky and the brisk desert air. For each other.